In planes, tomorrow a judge will listen to arguments in the American Airlines U.S. Airways antitrust case. The Department of Justice has set a March date for the trial. American and U.S. Airways are pushing for November. They say waiting until next year causes significant harm to the business and puts their proposed merger at risk. So what's the argument against? Well, DOJ says the proposed merger between American and U.S. Airways would raise ticket prices and hurt competition on more than 1,000 routes. One of their biggest concerns, the combined entity would control 2/3 of the gates at Washington's Reagan National Airport. Megan Hughes explains why this is so important.
Reagan National Airport is small. You may be able to tell by its sushi restaurants and high-end stores. Its customers are the elite, who work in business and politics. It's less than 5 miles from the White House, and the shuttle service to New York and Boston is worth a premium to Capital business travelers.
You know, I'm happy to use it. It's close when I'm coming from work.
We are cost conscious, I guess, so, but convenience would be the key thing, and then probably price in that order.
The market into Reagan National grew by 4.4% in 2012, while nationally, growth lagged at 1%. Reagan is elite in another way. It's the only one of the 3 D.C. area airports that's slot controlled. In other words, there's a cap on flights. Airlines have to buy, lease, or trade those slots with each other. They're traded in pairs for takeoff and for landing. In 2011, U.S. Airways made a trade with Delta. It gave Delta 132 pairs of slots at LaGuardia. U.S. Airways got 42 pairs at Reagan, along with cash in exchange. That deal brought U.S. Airways total to 55% of Reagan slots. American has 14%, so together they'd have 69%. The Justice Department said in its lawsuit they'd controlled 2/3 of nonstop routes at Reagan, and that's too much. A negotiated settlement may force the merged airline to give up as many as 14% of slots at the D.C. airport to get the deal done.
Okay, so here's a man who believes in the American-U.S. Airways merger. He's the former American CEO, Bob Crandall. He says it's good for the industry. He says it's also good for consumers.
The airline business is a network business. It depends, to succeed, you've got to be as big as the other guys, and you've got to have as much ubiquity. That is, you've got to serve as many places. Because corporations that buy a lot of airline tickets are going to select an airline that has both size and ubiquity. In this particular case, the Justice Department has allowed Continental and United to combine into a very large carrier. Then they have permitted Delta and Northwest to combine to a very large carrier, so much larger than either American or U.S. Air that neither American nor U.S. Air can compete effectively. Their networks are not big enough. They don't serve enough places. The consequence is this merger is pro-competitive. It is not anti-competitive. You're going to create a 3rd mega carrier to compete with the United and Delta that already exist. If you don't do that, in the very long run, not next week, not next month, but in the long run, neither American nor U.S. Air can be an effective competitor for United Delta. And United Delta will gradually become more like a duopoly.
The Justice Department has, of course, looked at those past combinations that they blessed in the past and concluded, listen, it led to higher prices out there. We don't want to do that again.
You know, the reality, Peter, is that the horse is out of the barn. If you now want to effectively control United and Delta, that is, if you want to provide effective competition for them, which is the only way to keep fares down, then you've got to let United and American create a viable competitor. If you do not, if you end up with a duopoly of United and Delta, then their ability to raise prices or change services will be essentially unrestrained. And that's not a good thing.
Do you think American has any chance of surviving on its own, coming out of bankruptcy without this deal? Is that simply not possible?
No, I think in the long run, Peter, American may survive, but it will be a bit player in the industry, and it will not be able to effectively challenge United and Delta without adding a great deal of capacity, which it does not have the ability to do, and without achieving much greater ubiquity, that is, serving many more cities than it now serves, and having a more effective network within the United States. So I don't think it can do those. I think it may survive. not a matter of survival. It's a matter of whether you can compete effectively.